Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
Is that the solution for the frustration? Is to be in your integrity?
Yes.
All
yes.
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Always be in your integrity. And in your integrity, you understand that it is what it is. Energy is until it's not, right? Energy is flowing into your body until it stops flowing because it becomes so clogged up, and then disease begins, right? So be in your integrity. When somebody's saying something that you totally disagree with, don't sit in your mind and go, what an idiot, right? Just say, wow, they're really convicted on how they feel. That's amazing. Bless them in their thoughts. Don't be judgmental in their thoughts. Bless them for having the power to feel the way they feel, even if it's different from you.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.
So thankful that you're with me today and with my guest. I'm looking forward to learning all about him and the work he's been doing. His name is Tim Walter, and he's from Britain, which I love his accent already because it's just a soothing accent. And so welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm happy you're here. So let's get started. Who are you?
I used to be a video producer and director and writer, and I used to work in the corporate world. I went to film school at the age of 18 and kind of sort of set out to be the next Ridley Scott, but in a very, very modest way, because I ended up working in the corporate arena, corporate messaging, working for big corporate organizations, with some degree of irony. Actually, I spent a lot of time working as a video production consultant and a conference producer for one of the world's largest life assurance companies. And now what I do is nothing to do with any of that stuff. What I do now is I'm a house healer and alternative life coach, and I help people readjust their relationship with their reality fundamentally. It's under the label of house healing because I work with the subtle energies of place as a modality and a way into working with the person.
Right up my alley, because I never thought it was about the people in the house. It was more the energy of the house that made the difference. So a lot of people probably are not used to the term house healing. So talk to me a little bit more about that, because I love it.
Yeah, I mean, let me take you back a little bit, and I'll carry on from where I was in the first answer as to who I am, because really the fundamental shift that occurred in my life was simply moving house. My wife and I, when we had two little boys, we used to live in the southeast of England, and as I said, I was working in the corporate arena, very, very, very stressed, and we lived in a very busy town. So we said, right, we've had enough of this. We're going to move out to the countryside and we're going to change the pace of life. And what we did was we actually moved over to the Welsh borders, which is the other side of the country, still sort of moderately south. And we bought a big old Victorian / Georgian townhouse in a village.
Uh-huh.
This was like a 4-bedroom property, 3 stories, a bit of space out the back. There used to be a barn and all this sort of stuff. It was a lovely house. But what we realised soon after moving in there was that we weren't alone. There was a presence in the house that was doing things with the flickering lights, and I started to see things out the corner of my eye. So in my peripheral vision, I would be seeing shapes moving. You know, dark is often described as dark shapes, but these were definitely human shapes moving. And there was one day in particular where I was literally making a cup of tea in the kitchen, and I put my hand out to pick up my mug of tea, and there was another arm right next to mine, just here, and it was just mimicking my movement. And I thought, oh yeah, we've got to get somebody in. We've got to get somebody in to look at this. So that was my introduction. We got some dowsers in to look at the house, and they explained about the fact that we had a presence, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But this was my introduction to the fact that we can be influenced at a very subtle level, but very deeply, by the environment in which we live. And subsequently, when we do the house healing work, what we're really working with is the person's entire reality. So we're asking what I refer to as the management upstairs to do the healing work on the person, to help that person's energy body and all of the facets in the different subtle realms that exist around us to shift and mold into the way that actually deeply that person actually wants to shift, but they don't know how, and it takes a certain intervention, shall we say, on a very subtle level.
Right.
To achieve that. And does that answer your question about what house healing is?
It does. I do want to go a little bit deeper because, you know, for most people, if they catch something out of the corner of their eye, or like you said, you know, a hand reaching for the tea, mimicking you, most people get terrified. I mean, they instantly assume that it's bad, that it's evil, that it's, you know, scary. What was your reaction?
What happened was that things started to kind of incur, no, that's not the right word, is it? Impact into our experience of reality, gently. So as I say, lights flickering, I can't even remember offhand of other sort of things, but everything was so delicately done, gently done. And when we actually made contact with this spirit lady, there was a lady called Jane. We ended up having conversations with her using dowsing. And it was very, very, very clear that she was incredibly aware that if she pushed the buttons too much, we were going to just freak out and it would be terrifying.
Yeah.
But because everything was done in such a drip fashion over a few months, it was like, okay, so there's something not quite right, but everything seems to be fundamentally okay.
Yeah.
But we had people come in. People came into the house, and they wouldn't go out the back of the house. My mother-in-law refused to go into the room at the back of the house. She said, "No, I'm not going out there." And it's like, well, why not? And it's because, quite frankly, because actually, it felt absolutely awful. It was really dark, really heavy. There was no natural light in the room for a start, and the previous owners had used it as like a storage space, a dumping ground. But now looking at it energetically, from the energetic point of view, it was terrible because there were, as I said, there were 3 floors to this house. They each had a bathroom on each of those floors, but the people before us had put the overflows from the toilets were even directed into that room at the back. So literally, it would be, you know, if there was a plumbing problem, it would be water pouring into that room at the back. What did they think they were doing? So, from an energy point of view, that space was pretty rough.
Yeah.
But from the spirit incursion point of view into our lives, into our realities, no, it was really gently done. And Jane was absolutely lovely.
Yeah. So how did you handle it? I mean, most people are like, let me get rid of this thing. I've always had the belief that you shift the energies of the the home itself, and the spirit will just gently kind of incorporate. What did you do? I mean, did you tell Jane she had to go? Did you tell her she
Oh,
had to do less
no,
less stuff?
no,
I mean, the
no.
inclusive is inclusive, right?
Yeah. Because I mean, you're quite right that most people do react and they're like, "Oh my God, this is terrifying." And there were times where we did get a bit jumpy, but the thing is, what happened was we actually had a builder of all things. A guy came round and he was measuring up for some work, and he said, "Look, I think you need to get somebody in about this. This stuff that's going on in your house. My wife is a dowser. Do you want me to have a word with her?" Right, okay, that's fine. So we said yes, bring her in. So one day,
Did you know about dowsing?
no, I
That
had
was
no
totally
idea.
new.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea. So
Okay.
this day, three ladies arrived. They came through the front door like the three witches from Macbeth, as far as I was concerned. It's like, oh yes, here we are. Now, of course, and they had these metal things, dowsing rods, right?
Dowsing rods,
It
yeah.
was like, all right, and I sort of looked at them. I thought, okay, what's that all about? But they, quickly demonstrated what that is all about. Was that they were getting yes and no responses. They virtually immediately followed and went straight to the room at the back and started having a conversation with somebody that we couldn't see. So me and my wife were there, and we were looking at each other like, "What is this about?" And it's like the very first thing that Jane said was to this lady, to the lady that was leading the three of them, "I just want to be part of the family." So she said, "So I've been trying to get their attention, in other words, our attention, but I
Right.
just want to be part of the family." And it's like, it seemed the most natural thing in the world. It's like, oh, well, of course, that explains it. That's why these things have been happening. It's because we've got a ghost who wants to be part of the family.
Right.
Now, when I was a kid, there was a movie, Peter Ustinov movie called Bluebeard's Ghost or something like that. So, and there was another movie called The Ghost and Mrs. Muir.
Uh-huh.
These
Yep, I remember
old
that one.
classics,
Yep.
right? These are old classic movies.
Yep.
So I think I probably kind of related something back to that and thought, oh, well, that's fair enough. So great. Can I talk to her? How does this work? And what does she want to do? So when those three ladies were there on that first meeting, we had quite a long conversation with everybody. But it was like just having somebody like Jane's presence was there. It was just as though she was a real person, but we couldn't see her. So obviously the lady in charge was relaying the conversation. But I soon learnt the dowsing in order to be able to communicate with her. And basically we lived there for 15 years, more or less. She was there for most of that time.
Wow.
So I used to have great conversations with her. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely fantastic.
Lots of information there. I mean, seriously. So how did this then lead you into a profession in doing this?
Well, in order to learn more about dowsing, I actually got in touch with a guy called Hamish Miller. Now, Hamish Miller was in the dowsing community over here, and actually in America, he's probably quite well known.
Uh-huh.
He was a real stalwart in the 80s, 90s. He passed away in 2010. But Hamish was the dowser who rediscovered the Michael and Mary lines that are energy lines, leylines, some people call them.
Right.
Again, we'll talk about that if we have time. But
Uh-huh.
he rediscovered the ones that run across the south of England. Then they're the Michael and Mary lines.
Uh-huh.
Now, those go all the way around the world.
Right.
Now, I wrote to Hamish to ask him to make some dowsing rods, because I thought these things are so special. He was a blacksmith. He promoted his services as, if you want some dowsing rods, I will make them. So I got some dowsing rods made by Hamish. I got on his mailing list, and I met him at one of his book launches. And as was or has been the case in my journey, I simply asked him at the time, have you ever thought of doing any telly? Because I thought, well, this guy's interesting. Maybe we can get a broadcast television commission with some of his, because what I was going through at the time was thinking, well, I've lived to 45 or whatever it was at the time. I can't actually remember. I haven't done the maths. But I never knew about this whole side of existence. I wasn't, unlike you, I wasn't born sensitive to that degree and, that, right? So I had a very normal upbringing. And then
Yeah.
suddenly I was presented with this stuff and thinking, well, this is great. Why doesn't everybody know about this? This is fantastic. I must tell everybody, is what I actually
Right.
thought.
Right.
So that journey, that learning about dowsing and becoming very friendly with Hamish, bless him, he became my mentor, and I had the real honour of knowing him as a friend as well as a professional colleague for 7 years, the last 7 years of his life. We made a few DVD programs together. But in doing that, there was a huge amount of exploration and discovery, and learning more and more about the healing modalities that are possible purely through intent, and then discovering the whole aspect of, well, what happens if what happens if a person actually wants to explore mediumship a little bit more and opens up more to that and asks the management for, okay, so where's my guide? What happens if can I connect to my guide? Who's my guide? And if I push it further into trance mediumship, what happens then? What's that all about? And I'll go into more detail, but I can't put it into one package. But it's an extraordinary journey that you can go on if you open up and say, yes, I want to do that. And what I realized very quickly, because I was being told it by Jane and my guide, that fundamentally the world is not what it seems. So your audience will know this, they'll know that instinctively anyway. They'll be right across that. It didn't mean anything to me in the first instance when my guide was constantly saying it, and he was constantly signing off with this comment, the world is not what it seems. And slowly I began to realize that actually what he was talking about was the illusory nature of, that all spiritual traditions talk about.
Yeah.
But equally at the same time, Jane was saying, it's not illusion, it's real. But my guide Merthin was saying, the world is not what it seems. Okay, so how is it not illusory? It's real, but it's not what it seems. And fundamentally, once you start to look into the way that reality can shift around you as a point of perception, which is what we are,
That's right.
then you see very clearly that the world is not what it seems.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we are brought up to be ignorant and maintained in a box, which actually we can take some very deliberate steps to step out of. And that's when we allow our true selves to be present, which is glorious.
Right. Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So when people have you come into their home, because the spirit is one or two or more, whatever, I've always said there's no such thing as empty space. Either we see us in the physical or we're there in spirit. And again, that's the illusion we think we're under when we're just looking at solid beings. But have you run into spirits who just are not as kind as Jane, who and I'm not talking nasty evil, I'm just talking about they kind of want things the way they want things and aren't as accommodating?
Yeah. So one of the things is that I don't go anywhere. I do all my work from here. So
Awesome.
all my work is remote. So I work anywhere in the world. So I've done house healings in Australia, for example, a lot in America. But so the simple answer to your question is yes. We do find a lot of those kind of stubborn energies. There are also all sorts of other aspects as well that influence somebody detrimentally, and you can use all sorts of different labels for them. But if we stick to spirits and we stick to the idea that yes, a person can either be in a physical form or a non-physical form, then just as much as you find in physical form, you get the same characteristics in some of these spirits that are stuck in houses, or just simply choose to be stuck there, or choose to be present, which is again another aspect. It's sort of what you were saying, which is that, this, as you say, no such thing as empty space. It's all full of potentiality. It's all consciousness in potential. And one of the things that Jane said really early on when she was describing earth energy lines was that actually think of it like a row of people queuing up. It's all lots of different people just queuing up along the line, making the line, because
Yes.
it's an aspect of consciousness. We, as a human being, are like I don't want to say it's like the best representation of consciousness, because that sounds like an arrogance, and it's not supposed to be an arrogance. But we are optimized for working in our physical environment. But we come out of potential, we come out of consciousness in a very easy fashion. We are, if we want to use the biblical term, we're made in the likeness of God. But so whenever we go into a space, we will find spirits to varying degrees of, of various characters.
Yes.
And so those are one of the aspects that we help move on, and it's not a process of exorcising these spirits. You mentioned earlier on about harmonizing the house, and then the spirits will kind of assimilate and move on. What we tend to do, and the way that I teach it, is that we basically talk to them. We talk to them as a collection. If there's 6 or so spirits in there, we'll gather them and talk to them and invite them to go to the light, and we'll ask upstairs to open the portal and all of this sort of stuff.
Right.
So it's very traditional in that sense. Most of them will go. Now, sometimes, as you've hinted, they don't want to go. Why should I? I've got a very nice setup here. I've been in charge of all these people. You've just let them go. I'm not terribly happy with you.
Right.
That sort of impression.
Right.
So, but usually they can still be reasoned with. And that's what we do, is we talk to them. We reason with them. It's like, come on, guys. It's like, you really don't want to be here. Why would you want to be stuck in a circumstance that you think, well, this is a nice place? Why is this a nice place? It's not.
Right.
You're an immortal being.
Yes.
Step on.
There's a big universe out there.
Absolutely.
I think that one of the things that I've said, and is just my belief, I guess, is that one of the heights of human conceit is saying, well, there's a spirit here, I'm going to force him to go to the light. I'm going to banish him. It's like, who do you think you are? I mean, who do you think you are? They're your equal. They're just in a different form. And I love the idea of reasoning with them, because, I don't do house healing per se, but I remember having a neighbor whose son kept seeing another teenage boy in the house, and bowls were moving across the table, and pictures coming off the wall, and just little stuff. But this was not their world, and so they were freaked out, and they had hired all sorts of different people to come in and banish this entity, whatever. And I saw him at a Christmas party.
Right.
And I'm like, is this the kind of stuff you do? And I'm like, no, but have a Bloody Mary ready for me at 5:00 tomorrow, and I'll come down. So
Right.
I just sat down, and they were telling me the experiences and so forth. And they're like, when are you going to do something? And I'm like, I already did. I already communicated that, let's just make it less scary. And it was a young boy who had died in a car accident, but that was their home before the current owners bought it. And they're like, that's it? And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it. And they're like, but aren't you supposed to banish them to the light? And I'm like,
What makes you think you can do that?
what makes you think we can do that? And so that's always been a stickler for me. So I love hearing how you're doing it and the reasoning, and having a conversation, and maybe even compromising at times.
Yeah. It's quite. I mean, again, this is something I learned from Hamish, was that degree of modesty from exactly the point of view that you're saying, is who do you think you are? So, if you've got an uncooperative spirit that just simply will refuse to go, then you do compromise. You say, well, can you just stay over in that part of the room, or can you just stay in that room? And maybe the house, you talk to the house owner and say, well, look, it's fine. They're in there. If you, just change things around a bit. I mean, I've never done it quite like that, to that degree. And I have to say that one of the things, quite often when I get asked, well, will we have to move? Do we have to move house? No, I've never asked anybody to move house. It's quite often, Patti, it actually is about the management doing exactly what happened to us, which was that they want some into, I keep this word incursion, it keeps coming up, I keep using it wrongly. But the management wants to put something into, a family's life or a person's life to say, just think about this for a bit. Like, hang on, come on, let's just make you aware a little bit of the spirituality that exists. Part of you, we know that the spiritual aspect, and your audience knows this, the spiritual aspect of life is a part of what we are.
That's right.
But we have, as a species, neglected it, and that's what we're now seeing. Is we're seeing the results of that neglect everywhere, globally. I mean,
yes.
And that's what's changing, is that we are being generally forced, in a very nice way, but very persuasively, to understand that we cannot neglect that spiritual aspect any longer. Yeah. Because that's what we are. That's what the world is created from.
That's right. That's right. And it's another avenue to make people aware, to help them be aware. And on that note, we need to leave it, but I'm really wondering, would you be willing to come into part 2?
Yeah, of course, that's fine. Yeah.
I would love to go into this deeper, because it's really valuable. It's really valuable what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I haven't met someone like you, and I'm sure my audience is going to want to hear more as well. So Tim, Walter, thank you so much for being with me today, and we'll definitely go into a part 2. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
And that's what's so critical. What you're thinking is still going inside of your body. Just because you don't say the words doesn't mean that it's not so, because you still think, right? And so we've gotten to the point where, well, as long as I keep my mouth shut, I'm okay. No, you're not. You're still storing up your body. You are still putting emotions in your body because of your need to be right. And if we have no right or wrong, then what is? And that's all there is, right? It's either energy or it's not. Whether you're speaking the words, whether you're thinking the words, whether you're thinking it, still matters. We've done so many more cellulars because people have stored so much more in the last 8 years than I've seen in my 28 years of doing this work. Because we think it, even if we don't speak it. And we're still filling our bodies with things that are conditional.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.